Welcome to Annette on Life, Liberty, and Happiness, a podcast where I talk about the Constitution, history, politics, and pretty much anything else I want to talk about. This podcast can be found on AnnetteTalks.com, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, finally iHeartRadio, and YouTube. So if you go to youtube.com/Annette Talks, you can find me there. You can see what we look like. And today I am joined again by my good buddy, DK Williams. Hey, DK.
Always glad to be here. It's a pleasure.
And we are going to talk about whether or not the Supreme Court's going to be any help with these COVID restrictions we've been dealing with, whether they've been any help so far and whether they will be in the future. And because you are my Supreme Court expert and you have your own podcast where you dissect there you go, you got a sticker. Dissect the Supreme Court cases, and it's called The Law with DK Williams. And where can that be found?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Where can your podcast be found?
Oh, yes, thank you very much. All of your reputable podcast app providers, and go to the official website, and they're always there, which is speakeasyIdeas.com/thelaw. And for all of the, when anything new comes out, it'll be on Twitter, and that's at the law DKW. So yeah, you'll never miss one if you follow me on Twitter. Or on Facebook, which is a page there, and it's The Law with DK Williams. So go check it out. And yep, the last one I did from last week, episode 82, I believe, was about this very timely issue about how much the government can make you do in a health crisis, with air quotes. And it was a incredibly timely case from 115 years ago. It came out in 1905, U.S. Supreme Court case, and we'll wade into it as you wish.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. I listened to your episode 82, and you're coming up on 100. Won't be long now.
I know.
That's awesome. But I was on another episode, and a friend said, well, wasn't there a case before the Supreme Court about these church restrictions? And I said, yeah, there was. And so I thought, you know what, we need to talk about that. So I went back and I listened to 82, and I listened to it twice. And I always think it's good to listen to those episodes more than once because they're packed full of information. And anytime you're receiving that much information at one time, it's good to go back and listen again. And it was only like 36 minutes long. So right. I recommend that people go and listen to that episode and others, because you do a good job at keeping it understandable, relatable, and entertaining. And that's not always easy to do with Supreme Court cases, as we both know, since we've both been to law school, we know what it's like to wade through those things. So I'm glad you're here for us, and you're breaking these things down for us.
Thank you very much.
So
I enjoy it.
Oh, good. So this case is from 2020, and it's South Bay United Pentecostal Church versus Newsom, which is Gavin Newsom, which is the governor of California.
Yep.
And as we know, California is still locked down to a ridiculous extent. Which is, to me, shocking that we're in August now. I honestly thought this would be over in maybe May, June, and it's still going in August. And California's locked down worse than most of the rest of us. And so this church wanted to stop the governor from basically restricting them to, what was it, 25% capacity of their church, something like that?
Or 100 people, whichever was smaller.
Okay.
This is a big church. And one thing I like to do, and I talk about, because that is the catalyst for me going back to this Jacobson versus Massachusetts case from 1905, dealing with a mandatory smallpox vaccination. And so that was very relevant to this South Bay Pentecostal case. And I think it's important to like humanize these cases, because quite often we'll hear, Tussey v. Ferguson or Brown versus Board of Education. And it just becomes a symbol for whatever that opinion says, and we forget that these are actual people. So actually I looked up the South Bay Pentecostal Church website to see what the church looks like. Here are some of the people that go, here's some of the staff, the pastors or whoever, because that to me is important to realize that these are people, not just abstract ideas.
And you know what, I have to insert this to personalize it even further, because here in Colorado we're still limited in what we can do church-wise. And my ward, which for people that aren't a member of my church, it's our congregation. So my ward is meeting once a month right now, and we are wearing masks. We are sitting social distance from each other. We're not singing, and we're meeting in 2 sessions instead of 1.
Yep.
So I went, and we're only meeting once a month. So I went last month, the 4th Sunday, and sitting there with the mask on, because we're inside in a public place, right? That's the governor's order. And we can only have, I think, up to 99 people or whatever. And so sitting there away from people with my mask on in church. And I have to tell you, I was so angry the entire time.
Yeah.
I had a really hard time focusing on the service and trying to feel the spirit, and, you know, not being able to sing hymns. And for those of us that go to church on a regular basis, that's a really big deal. Now, I think that choice was probably made by our local church leaders to try and make people feel more comfortable, because I know some wards are singing. And I've done a little informal poll on Facebook to ask people around the country what they're doing in my church as far as meeting. And it's all over the board, from meeting once a month to meeting every week, although that's very rare. Oh, and some people aren't even back yet. Right. But all trying to meet these local ordinances, or I should say executive orders from their governors or from their health department. But I can tell you that personally, having to sit there with those restrictions sucks. And it takes so much away from what we're trying to do when we're meeting together as a congregation. And I'm going again tomorrow. It'll be 4 weeks. And I'm already trying to psych myself up and saying, you can do this, it's okay. But the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, this shouldn't be happening. The governor should not be able to reach into the church and tell us what to do. And so this is very personal to those of us who take our church going experience seriously. And once a month ain't 4 times a month.
Right.
So it's severely restricted, and it's it has a big effect on those of us that are actually, you know, wanting to go to church and worship in the way we see fit. So I can relate to these Pentecostals. So take us back to the Pentecostal church here.
Right. So this church is in Chula Vista, California, which I looked up. Apparently, it's a pretty big place.
That's in San Diego area. Yeah.
Right, there you go. Yeah, outside of San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
Big church, and their complaint was based on the different treatment of religious services versus other public activities, because there are different rules for churches than for grocery shopping, right, or some other things that people do. So there were different limitations, and so the church in Chula Vista was like, you can't treat religion differently than you treat these other secular activities, grocery shopping, whatever it was. So that is a problem for equal protection of the laws under the 14th Amendment, and that's the gist of it. So they sought an injunction in federal court, which they lost. And this is an important aspect of this. And most people will probably be bored by this, but when you seek an injunction, it's a much harder to get an injunction to stop somebody from doing something than it is to sue them and go to trial and win at trial. Winning at trial is hard too, but it's harder to get an injunction because the judge will order something without hearing full argument. It's like, this is so important right now, we have to do something right now. And it's a high barrier to get that. And so that's what they tried to get in order, saying, Gavin Newsom in California, you guys cannot enforce this differently against the churches than you do other activities. So they lost that at the trial level. It wasn't trial level, but it was just a judge who normally does trials. They appealed it to the Ninth Circuit, and then it went up. They said, hey, and they lost there. And then they said, hey, U.S. Supreme Court, help us out. And the U.S. Supreme Court doesn't have to hear these things. They can just not hear it. And that's what they did. And when the Supreme Court says we're not going to hear it, they don't have to write anything. They can just go, no. Basically, that's it. We're not. Denied. That one word, denied. Sometimes they'll write something to explain it, which they did in this case. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote like 3 pages explaining why he voted against the church. And a big case that he cited is Jacobson versus Massachusetts. That's the smallpox case from 1905.
I want to interrupt you really
Yeah,
quickly.
yeah, absolutely.
Because I listened to your case, and I know that the one that he uses to cite does not even reach equal protection. And so I'm curious as to why that was never discussed. And the other thing is, why did the church not make a First Amendment argument free exercise of religion? Any ideas?
There's a million strategic reasons that I am not privy to. So I'm not sure why they chose which arguments to emphasize. They probably made them, but again, I only read the Supreme Court opinion on this, not the briefs and everything else. Because again, the Supreme Court doesn't have to say anything, much less address every single argument. And so, it was a 5-person justice. 5 of them voted not to hear it. Chief Justice John Roberts, along with the traditionally, the considered more of the progressive wing of it. The ones nominated by Democrats. That's a factual statement. RBG, Sotomayor, Kagan, and Breyer, along with Roberts, who was appointed by a Republican. Then the other 4 voted to hear it. Kavanaugh, the other K.A. Kavanaugh,
Gorsuch,
Thomas, Alito. That's it.
Yeah.
And 2 of them, one of them wrote, Kavanaugh wrote about why he thinks it should have been heard. I think it was Kavanaugh. Anyway, one of them wrote about why it should have been heard. And in essence, I mean, the line that is frightening to me, which I talk about in the podcast, which I think sums it all up from the 1905 case, which was a 7-2 decision saying that Mr. Jacobson had to get the smallpox vaccination back in 1905. 7-2 saying, yeah, that local law regulation is enforceable. And as a quick aside, because I like what happens if you don't, right? What happened to Mr. Jacobson because he refused to get the shot? $5 fine. But that was 1905. Do you remember what it is in today's dollars?
Yeah, so it's just under 150.
Yep, right. Because I try to discuss real value of money whenever a fine like that comes up. So he's fined $150 in today's money, $5 back then. And the scary part about that is it said until he pays it in 1905, he would be in jail until he paid it. So, and it doesn't say what happened. He might have just paid it and appealed, but conceivably he would have been put in jail, which that is frightening to me. And things like that still happen today. When somebody is in violation of some regulation or something in, say, in a municipal court, and they're fined, and if they can't pay it, they'll be put in jail. Now, they won't be put in jail until they pay it. They'll be like, okay, you can either pay this much or go to jail for 5 days or whatever it is. To me, that's frightening, but that's another aside. So the Jacobson versus Massachusetts case, this sentence, it's like 4 lines, almost 4. I cannot believe this was written by a 7-2 majority of the United States Supreme Court in this country, in the United States of America, right? And this is it. This is them upholding the mandate to get a smallpox vaccination back in 1905. Chief Justice John Marshall Harlan I. The possession and enjoyment of all rights, that's huge, all rights are subject to such reasonable conditions as may be deemed by the governing authority of the country essential to the safety, health, peace, good order, and morals of the community. All your rights are subject to whatever the governing authority deems to be necessary. And not just for public health, for morals. That is zero limitation on what the government can do. That is frightening. Well, but that is the law.
Yeah, and so there's no limitation. What's interesting is that in his argument, he cites the 9th and 10th Amendments to basically say that the federal government can't do this, but the state can.
Right.
And to me, that's really concerning right now, because all of these executive orders that are coming down and keeping us locked in and masked up and everything else are coming from our governors.
Yeah.
They're not coming from the president.
Right. And local health boards or whatever. Yeah. Yes. Right.
And so if this is the way our Supreme Court deals right now, by way of John Roberts, who has not been conservative this whole time. If we had another case go up before them and John Roberts has not changed his tune at all, everything the governors are doing right now is fine. It would be acceptable because they, you could make an argument with any of these things as being for the general health and whatever of each state, because the 9th and 10th Amendment gives the police power to the state. And so it sounds to me like the only thing that this 1905 case does is give the power to the state instead of the federal government. But then it puts no limit at all.
Right.
What the state, or in this case, it was the city, right?
It was a city in Jacobson, of Cambridge.
Can do. And that's breathtaking.
Yeah.
That's, okay, so let's just spitball this a little bit. Let's say Biden is elected. And he's already said, as soon as he's elected, he wants to put in a mask mandate for the whole country. A national mandate.
Zero authority to do.
No, not at all. And even according to this crazy case,
right?
The police power is at the state level. It's not at the federal level. The federal has enumerated powers.
Right.
It means that only what the Constitution says they can do. What was it? Article 1, Section 8, you said, I think?
Article, yeah. Yes,
that's what you said in your case. That's the only reason I remember, because I just it's the Constitution tells the federal government what it can do. It gives it specific powers, and it's not supposed to do anything beyond those powers. The 9th and 10th Amendment basically says those powers belong to the states or to the people, right? And so if Biden's elected and decides to go ahead with this mask mandate or whatever other crazy lockdowns, because he sounds like he just wants to lock everybody down. Which is amazing coming from supposedly liberal party.
The liberals are just as statist as the conservatives are, perhaps on different topics, but
different topics.
They all believe that they're really, really smart, and if they're in power, everybody needs to do what they tell them to do.
Yeah,
and that's what's scary.
And so it seems to me like the Supreme Court, if we just went by this case, and John Roberts would knock down anything that Biden would do, but the governors can continue.
Pretty much. Now, what the defenders of Jacobson would say is that it does say reasonable, right? And so the Supreme Court or a federal court could say, well, what you're doing is not reasonable. But again, reasonableness is not an objective standard. It's supposed to be.
Subjective.
It's supposed to be, but it's different people think different things are reasonable, right? I mean, as a concept, it's supposed to be objective, but that's not in practice. It can't be, right?
So that makes me wonder if, again, just spitballing, if one of these churches came forward with I would say the 14th Amendment, the Equal Protection Clause was a good argument, but also the religious exercise clause in the First Amendment, free exercise clause of religion. I don't see how you get around that with, as long as it's reasonable. I mean, it's two separate arguments.
Definitely.
I just wonder if that's something that we might have hope, because they didn't hear the case on the merits.
Correct.
So if one of these churches came forward, maybe not out of California, my circuit's always going to knock them down, but if we got to get to the Supremes anyway. So if another church came along and said, we're going to argue this on First Amendment basis, and the court actually heard the case, I wonder if it would be any different.
Well, reasonableness is still a standard.
Yeah.
And the Supreme Court has said on many occasions that rights are subject to reasonable restrictions, and I rail against that, because you don't have a right if it's subject to what somebody else deems reasonable.
Yeah. How is it a first? I mean, and they put the amendments in order of importance, and so to take a First Amendment right and to say you can put reasonable restrictions on it, there's no end to what the government can do. I mean, in this case, the state or city.
And just as a quick aside, because it's important to this case, is that the Bill of Rights, which is more properly the Bill of Restrictions, because it doesn't say you have the right to free speech. It's not granting you that right. It says Congress shall make no law abridging the right of free speech.
Right.
And it presupposes the existence of rights. That's the whole natural rights concept. We
Right.
have rights because we're born. The federal government or any government may have authority over us in certain situations, and they may make us do stuff. But that's supposed to be limited by the federal government under the United States Constitution. But originally, the 13 colonies, they weren't concerned about what the colonies were going to do to their people. They were only concerned about this new federal government they were creating and what it might do to take away state authority. Again, not states' rights, states' authority. And so the Bill of Rights restrictions didn't apply to the states. And that's an important part of Jacobson versus Massachusetts, because it says states got together and said, okay, the federal government can have a post office. They don't have to. They can have it. They're authorized to have a post office. They can declare war. They don't have to, but they have that authority. They can print money. They can have a criminal system for counterfeiting. That's specifically in there. And for treason. These are things the federal government can do. If we don't give it to the federal government, that's still, we have the power over that. The state or the individuals do. And the general police power over public health isn't given to the federal government. So the states hang on to that. Now, that's the idea. I think that's largely been erased in a series of cases, starting with Wickard v. Filburn, which I discussed in episode 5 of the law. But that's the idea. And it's an important idea here in Jacobson versus Massachusetts. And I think it's important for time-wise because it was in 1905 where Wickard v. Filburn, which basically said the federal government can do almost anything it wants because it affects commerce, was in 42. So, 27 years later, 37 years later, I was told there would be no map. But things really changed after the Wickard case. So the federal government could do almost anything now. But there's still some, at least, principled, foundational reasons that they shouldn't be able to. But I think the only thing that'll stop the Supreme Court, one thing that they will be able to hang their hat on if they want to stop any of this stuff is the reasonableness requirement. They can say it's not reasonable to say 100 people can go to a concert, but they can't go to church. They can say that's not reasonable. But again, that's pretty fluid standard.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's just say that the Supreme Court is not going to be any help in this situation. Then maybe we can have some state Supreme Courts that will go against the governor, and then it just doesn't go any further. I mean, the federal court doesn't hear it, doesn't go any further up the chain. Or to a circuit court decides against a governor on a constitutional issue, and then the Supreme Court never hears it. I mean, that's
right. I mean, they're different levels, and you definitely people in a state could look to their state court, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And depending on where you are, that might be successful. But if you're not, and I think this is what's going on with some of these churches now. There's nothing more American than disobedience.
Yeah.
And so churches some of them, and other things too, are like, I'm not doing what you tell me. If you come here and arrest me, you can come here and arrest me. But we're not going to do that voluntarily. We're not going to succumb. We're not going to obey that regulation, which affects us and our beliefs in a negative way that we refuse to comply with.
Well, that's what I've been thinking,
Yeah.
Is if the Supreme Court is not going to uphold and defend the Constitution like they're supposed to be doing, then, and we can't get any relief in other courts, we're left with nothing but civil disobedience.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty much it. And there are a lot of us ready to do that. But it's disheartening that when you look around, a lot of people are allowing them fear to stand in the way of disobedient, like, why are we not all, sort of pushing back en masse against like mask mandates and closures? And, I don't, if we don't see some of that in the next month or two, I'm going to lose a lot of hope for this country.
Yeah.
Because there's COVID-19 is coming to an end. I mean, if you look at all the charts and everything, it's much less deadly than it has been. People are not being hospitalized and
And
dying.
even if you get it,
It's much less deadly. It's dying. I
right.
posted a blog post on my Facebook page the other day where a guy lays out the whole case. I mean, I've got this whole like 30-page case that he makes with
Right.
like a gazillion charts and graphs, and I'm going to be podcasting on this in the future. That basically makes a really great case for this thing being over, like it's run its course.
Right.
And yet governments aren't telling you that, and they're not acting as if that's the case.
Yeah, they don't want to give up the power they're
Right.
asserting. I mean, that's a human nature thing, and it goes into public choice theory, which is an economic concept that is very valid, very applicable in this situation, where we pretty much understand that individuals want to do what's best for them, and so if they grow a crop of wheat, they want to sell it and get the best price for it, right? I mean, that's normal. It applies to government officials too. If they don't use their power, then they're like losing it, or they're going to lose it. So it's in their interest for them to feel important, among other things, whatever. They even if they generally believe what they're doing is right, they want to use their power.
Yes.
That is a human nature thing to do. It takes more strength to say, I'm not going to use my power because we don't need to.
If you watch any of these governors, like Polish yesterday had this press conference, and every week there's a new villain, for him to vilify, and so he has to make these lockdown orders or whatever. Like right now, first it was us bastards. That was his word, bastards that weren't wearing our masks.
Selfish bastards.
Yeah, and so there had to be a mask mandate. He had to come out there and show us, right? So now everybody's masking up, and so he had to go find another villain, and it was these 20-somethings going to bars and congregating in big groups. These 20-somethings who don't get sick, by the way, don't pass anyway.
Most of them don't even know they have it if they get it.
Never have. How dare they go out there and get together in bars? So he moved last call down to 10 o'clock, and he's been facing a lawsuit over that. And I don't know what's going on with it.
He did just move it to 11.
So yesterday, big man came out. And I guess science is now telling him that 11 o'clock is safe.
It's okay. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I wanted to ask, if I were a reporter, I would say, what about 10? Why is 10:45 not safer?
Right.
Wait, what about 10:50? That's the kind of questions I would start asking him.
Right.
Because
he would just say, well, we have to have some arbitrary point, and that's the arbitrary point.
Right. Exactly. It's arbitrary. Right. And so, in 2 weeks, maybe he'll decide that 12 o'clock is again safe.
Right.
And then, so yeah, I want to see what's going to happen when these governors and health department officials continue to make these arbitrary rules and lockdowns and mask mandates, as people continue to see, hopefully continue to see, which is why I'm, constantly posting things, and I'm going to be podcasting about it, showing people, look around. The numbers are coming way down. People are not being hospitalized at nearly the same rate. People are not dying at nearly the curve has been flat for a long time, but it's coming down precipitously. So when we see this happening, but government's still not letting go, what's going to happen? And this is what I'm going to be watching for. Are people going to start pushing back and saying, no, there's no reason for this?
Yeah, they will. They will. And I think they are. And they will continue to do it.
Because otherwise I do lose hope, because we have too many people who are good little doobies, and they want to keep their masks on.
And I have seen some establishments with a sign saying to the effect, there's a governor or a statewide mandate that you wear a mask inside this facility. However, we have no legal authority to ask you if you have a medical condition preventing you from doing that. Basically saying, if you don't wear it, we're not going to police it. All right, and I think you're going to see more of that. Maybe not from the big national chains, but I think you're going to see it from more mom and pop shops.
I hope so.
Not all of them. Some of them are just as scared.
Because I want to go. I will take my business to wherever whoever's doing that.
Absolutely.
Even if it means I don't get the same stuff I've always had. Whatever. I don't care. I will go.
And I think that's huge. I mean, that's like the call to action, is to, when you can, and if you wish, it's not going to cause too big of a problem, And everybody gets to make up their own mind on that. I don't fault anyone for wearing a mask into a place because, it's a hassle if they don't. I get it. But to some people, it's not a hassle. They don't care. Everybody gets to make their own decision on that, how much they're going to comply, when they're not going to comply, and when they're going to push back. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that is, that is American. Even Thoreau and Emerson talked about civil disobedience, right? After we were a country. So that is ultimately the way things get changed.
Well, and I hope to see a lot more of it. I'm starting to see some, because they're making kids wear masks at school.
I know. Yeah.
It's hideous. My daughter, my 12-year-old, and my girls, I always told them, look, you tell me if this thing becomes difficult for you, and I'm going to go in and push for you not to wear masks in school, right? Oh, no, we don't want people to hate us. We don't want people.
Right.
It's your choice. But my daughter gave me a paper to sign for the PE, telling us what the rules are. And then there was a notes and comments section at the end. So I wrote a nice long note about how kids shouldn't be wearing masks in the first place, and certainly not wearing them outside, because they're continuing to make them wear them outside except for when they're exercising, which is ridiculous. And so my daughter's like, I'm going to erase all this. No, you're not.
Right. And that's even, that's even against what the CDC and the World Health Organization are saying. It's like saying if you're outside and you can maintain social distancing, then you don't need a mask.
So I am seeing some moms, mostly in Utah. We have a lot of LDS folks, and we don't like being told what to do. We're very constitutional people. We love the Constitution. We love our founding. And so I'm seeing a lot of moms pushing back on the mask mandates for their kids. Yeah. I'm going to do an episode on that too. I'm going to have a mom on. She already went to the school and said, my daughter's not wearing a mask. And they sent her home. 15 minutes later, the principal called and had her come back. And I'm seeing other stories and protests and things going on there. There was a whole website dedicated to it. Yeah. Getting your kids exempted from masks. And so I would love to see that here in Colorado and other states. And so we just need to start pushing back.
And I think as a good way to wrap up, like I think in Douglas County, there was a good example of that. You had the Tri-County Health Organization, which was Douglas, Arapahoe, and Adams, I think. Yeah. And the Douglas County Commissioners said, you know what? You guys are going too far. We're no longer going to be we're not going to let you guys run the public health for us anymore. We're going to do that ourselves or have somebody else do it. Yeah. So that is a good way to push back. And that was a level of government that can be helpful. Yes. So if there is a level that it can be helpful, use it.
And I live in Douglas County, and so I was very proud of them for doing that. But again, I saw pushback from other citizens. Oh, you're so terrible. It never ceases to amaze me. People line up to give away their freedom and beg politicians to take away their freedom. I'll never understand that. Yeah. But, we need to continue emailing, calling our local officials, our governors. They are not going to do anything until they're forced into stopping. Right. So if court cases aren't going to do it, we've got to do whatever we can, and I would say we're going to end up doing both. We need to do both. We tell our county commissioners, our governors, our mayors, we don't want this, we don't want this, we don't want this.
And cite something, if you want to. I think it's good if you
Constitution, cite local law, whatever you need to do, and then start pushing back with civil disobedience where you feel comfortable.
Yeah, go to places that don't require you to wear a mask or whatever it is. Support them, and point out, read the CDC, read the WHO, World Health Organization stuff, because a lot of the stuff that these people are doing in government go beyond that. There's even these massive governmental bureaucracies that we've got set up aren't saying do that. So when you can find that, point that out, and it's frequent. So if you write the mayor or your council member, say even the WHO doesn't say to do that, or even the CDC doesn't say to do that. So when that's there, point that out to them, and don't be quiet and don't comply when it doesn't make sense.
Yes, thank you. Well, it's sad that the Supreme Court is not going to be there for us, but it is what it is. It's a fact of life, so we need to find other ways. So I hope everyone will take that to heart and start doing your civic duty and listen to the law. D.K. Williams And we will see more Supreme Court cases come along. And if you want to know what's going on with the court, listen to DK, the law at DK Williams. What was it? Speakeasy?
Yeah, if you go to speakeasyideas.com/the-law, they're all listed there. And if it's easier to go to Twitter, it's at the law DKW, and that'll take you there.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being on.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Always great having you on. Find my podcast on AnnetteTalks.com, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube.com/Annette Talks. Please comment, subscribe, share, like, and thank you for listening to Annette on Life, Liberty, and Happiness.
All right.